helping our fellow Oklahomans. That's one of the reasons the Oklahoma Standard was created, of kindness, honor, and service. And my two guests here are a perfect example of all three of those elements of the Oklahoma Standard. It's a new service coming to Oklahoma City. It's a rider-sharing model for seniors and those who are visually impaired. Let me introduce you to Katherine Freund, President and founder of ITN America, and Dr. Mark Mellow, who's president of the board here locally. Katherine, let me start with you, first of all. Sure. Explain to us what ITN America is.
ITN America is the national organization that supports independent transportation network in communities across the country. And ITN, Independent Transportation Network, is a service that uses automobiles and provides door-through-door, arm-through-arm rides for older people and people with visual impairment.
How long ago did you start this service?
Well, I guess I have to say we're about to celebrate our 20th
Well, that's
anniversary.
fantastic.
Yeah, yeah.
And what got you started with this?
I got started, you know, as with so many people, something happens to your family. And in my family, my son, when he was a child, was actually struck by an older driver. And at that time, I just said, this didn't need to happen. And we can fix it if we help older people with their transportation so that they don't get behind the wheel when they shouldn't. So
how did you go about establishing this? It's one thing to have the idea and address the need or see that there's a need, but you took action.
Stubborn, I guess.
Okay, well that's fair enough.
Well, it's a grassroots model. I sometimes call it transportation of the people, by the people, for the people. I guess you can quote Lincoln, huh?
Always.
But it's a service model where people in the community volunteer and help to support the service. We also have paid drivers, and people join. They become members. It's a nonprofit, a charitable nonprofit, and once they join and set up what we call a personal transportation account, they can call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and ask for a ride to take them where they need to go. And we have some pretty innovative ways for people to pay for their rides. A lot of older people have cars they can't drive anymore, and they often give them away, or sometimes they park them in the driveway and visit them. No, it's true. But we have a program where people can trade the car to pay for their rides, or volunteers who help others can store credits and use those credits when they're older and someone can drive them. So it's kind of a grassroots, innovative way to do it. But the net result is that an unmarked automobile comes to an older person's door, picks them up, takes them to health care, takes them to shopping, takes them to the hairdresser. And it's very important because adult children, they're working or they live in another community, and their parents, come to a point in their lives where it's tough to drive safely. And the adult children, the families, they feel guilty if they say something. They feel worried if they don't. It's tough. So we kind of help and fill in, and I'd say 3 out of 4 people who join the service don't drive, but 1 out of 4 does. And they kind of transition during the time that they're using the service. And once the service is set up for them, they can stay in their homes, they can be independent. They can go out on dates, they can go to dinner, they can do whatever they want.
Well, I think that's the key word there is quality of life, but it is independence. No one wants to lose that independence, the ability to have the freedom to drive themselves around.
Right, right. Driving mobility means independence. But if you drive when you shouldn't, that doesn't mean independence, that means risk.
Katherine, let's talk about you real fast before we bring in Mark. What brings you to town? Because this is not based out of Oklahoma City. I think this is perhaps off the West Coast?
No, it's East Coast.
Oh, East Coast, Portland, Maine.
When you said Portland, I just naturally assumed Oregon, but we're talking lobsters.
That's it.
We're talking lobsters.
Okay. But what brings you to Oklahoma City today?
Well, I came to speak at the Vision Serve Alliance conference, and I also came to visit the folks here in ITN Central Oklahoma and help them get going here.
And the perfect segue to you, Dr. Mellow, and congratulations on retirement and putting your time to use with this, right?
Thank you, yes.
Well, tell us some more about what we can expect here locally, or what the goal is.
Okay. Well, the goal is to basically provide a personalized, affordable service for transporting seniors and adults with visual impairment 24/7 to the destination of choice. And I think that's a very important thing. I actually first heard about the organization in a roundabout way. I was attending a dinner talk, and the speaker was a geriatrics professor at the OU Health Science Center, and she was talking about the medical and psychiatric aspects of how you evaluate a senior to be able to continue driving, and how hard it is to take away the keys. There are very few alternatives. And at the end of the talk, she sort of threw out, gee, I have this friend of mine in Portland, Maine, who started an organization, ITN America. And so at that time, I still am on the committee, but at that time I was on the Community Health Committee of the Oklahoma County Medical Society. And we looked into it, Googled it, and had enough interest to pursue it. And on this committee are members from AARP, from United Way, from Council for the Aging. So it was basically across the board community service agencies that we would interact with the county medical for health needs. And we formed a subcommittee of that group and met for about a year on a monthly basis, trying to decide if this was a service that Oklahoma City needed. And I guess to make a very long story short, the answer was a resounding yes, because certainly there are a lot of people in this area, like everywhere else, who can't or shouldn't be driving. But unlike many other cities, the public transportation system is almost non-existent here. And it's a very geographically dispersed community. So to get from one place to another is a very hard thing. And so basically we, bottom line, decided to become an affiliate of ITN America. And that requires a fair amount of work. You have to first establish your nonprofit status. So we applied to the IRS for that, received it, and moved into the fundraising arena so we could raise enough money to get off the ground. And we're now at a point where we are, let's say, ready to roll in the summer. We've hired an executive director. We are very excited to have a partnership with NewView, one of the visually impaired agencies in town, who is going to supply us with a dispatcher and also help us in recruiting volunteer drivers, which is a key need in an organization like this.
You bring up a good point there. I believe we had done a story about NewView and some of the ride needs. And I think they said in that story, we did it a year ago maybe, 50,000 Oklahomans are faced with some sort of visually impaired situation. So there is a need across the state. Here locally, what areas are you looking at?
Well, Oklahoma County, we tried to keep it a little bit nebulous in calling it Central Oklahoma, because one of the key issues in being able to provide a service in a particular location is having the volunteer drivers sufficient to make that an efficient trip. The software, for instance, that ITN America supplies its affiliates with revolves around that, trying to geographically match the location of the volunteer driver with the member with the destination, so that unlike a taxi who might be sitting down at the airport going out to Mercy or something to get you a ride, these are people who hopefully within a very small geographic radius can provide the service. So that's really, I think, one of the important things. But Oklahoma County, there are 67 zip codes, and on our website, itncentraloklahoma.org, you can find some specific information about that.
How can people help? I'm assuming you're probably looking for drivers and volunteers, and I'm also assuming in this situation, even more so than me taking an Uber or a Lyft or a taxi cab, there's probably some pretty significant trust issues, you know?
Yes, well, I think that's true. Well, there are a couple of things that might differentiate ourselves from Uber and Lyft, but I don't really want to consider that competition, because I would be happy if everybody who needed a ride in Oklahoma City could get a ride. So that's sort of another issue. But the drivers go through a background check, both criminal check and 3-year safety check through the Motor Vehicle Department. We have specific training that AARP has agreed to help us with, where the drivers go through a half-day training program, and also NewView is going to provide us with the same kind of support in driver training as well, because there is certainly You know, it's not like having a 30-year-old hop in the back of your car. I mean, there are special needs that people who are 80 years old or can't see well need. And so we are proud to say that nationally, at least, that this, and we should have it here, that the drivers go through an appropriate training program.
Nationally, Katherine, what are some success stories? How are people using your service?
Well, about 40% of trips are healthcare.
Okay.
But then there's another 50% that's shopping. You'll never guess what the most popular consumer ride is.
No, what are we talking about here?
We're talking about getting your hair done.
Oh, that makes sense, right? Sure.
Right. So getting your hair done, we take people to volunteer, we take people to work, we take people to church, we take people to socialize, we take people on dates. We had one 91-year-old gentleman who joined eHarmony, and he used ITN for dates. And I've personally driven an 82-year-old man on a date. He took a woman out to dinner and drove him.
Very
so
nice.
Really, you know, all those ideas that people have about what kind of transportation older people need, just throw those all right out the window and understand that when you're older, I don't know what your favorite restaurant is, if it's Thai food or Italian food or whatever.
Let's say it's pizza, because I love some pizza.
So I can tell you that when you're 85, you're still going to love pizza and you're still going to want to go out to eat.
Fair enough. Those needs are not ever going to go away.
No.
But we are talking a one-on-one. It's not just, hey, a big van, everybody get in, everybody get out.
No.
More of a personalized service.
It's personalized service, and, you know, if you think of it this way, we all need some assistance to be independent, as ironic as that may seem. And so the same physical changes that make it difficult for people to drive when they're older mean that they may need just a little bit of assistance. So ITN, if people have a visual impairment, we offer an arm. If they have a cane or a walker, we stow that in the vehicle for them. If they need help with their packages at the grocery store, we bring those into the house for them. It's that little bit of help that makes people independent. And the volunteers who drive for ITN affiliates really, you know, it sounds so corny, they are the salt of the earth. They're wonderful people, and it really is true that the satisfaction you get when you volunteer to drive it's fabulous. I mean, think about this. Cars are like these little rolling living rooms, right? They're upholstered, they've got music piped in, climate controlled, they got picture windows all around. People get in the front seat, they sit there and they exchange recipes and they show you pictures of grandchildren and they talk about what they just did, and it's just a very nice experience. It's a very rewarding experience, both for the passengers who often are a bit isolated because they can't get out of the house that easily, and for the volunteers who have now connected at a very human level with a person in their own community. It's a great experience.
A lot of fulfillment there.
It is. It is.
Katherine, Mark, thank you very much for your time. We're going to bring you guys back as we get this program rolling in Oklahoma City later this summer. Congratulations to you both, and we look forward to hearing more. Thank you for your time today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.